Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. Today, April 6th. It's a nice spring day, a little overcast but warm. We've been waiting. We are planting tomatoes. So very excited. I know you can hear how excited I am. We've been working toward this now since last fall. We love our tomatoes, and that's the main reason we started gardening. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the effort we put into growing tomatoes, and hopefully you can choose from what I'm telling you some things that will help you grow the very best tomatoes that you can. This is a little different. We don't throw a lot of stuff at our tomatoes. Our method is more feed the soil, wait, add a little here, a little there, let the soil become rich, let the soil feed the tomatoes. Now, if you talk to 10 different tomato growers, you're going to get 10 different methods of growing tomatoes. And there are some things that folks can choose for themselves, and there are some things that really need to be paid attention to. So I'm going to give you our method. You can take from it what you like, and if you're around next July, you can take some tomatoes. The first thing I will tell you is we do raised bed gardening. This is one of our raised beds. We have several different kinds. This particular raised bed was put together late fall, early winter. It is made out of landscaping timbers. The reason it's made out of landscaping timbers is because we had some cheap. It is a treated wood. It is not the old-time treated wood that has arsenic in it. This is the kind of treatment that they do now, pressure treated, that does not contain all those toxins that you've heard about years ago. It has been built since, I guess this particular one was built last November. It sat empty for quite some time. It's been rained on. Anything that's in it has leached down. I've been assured that there's minimal leaching of anything and that nothing toxic. However, you may not want to use pressure-treated lumber. You may want to use plain pine, or better still, if you could afford it, if I could afford it, cedar. But this is what we use. This bed was built, as I said, about last November, and over the winter and early spring, it has had grass clippings, leaves, wood mulch, all kinds of organic matter thrown into it, and it has had time to decompose and to age. The wood chips that we put in it had sat for a year before they got here, so they're well on their way to decomposition. So when it was about half full, we bought some soil that was a mixture of topsoil, composted cow manure, and mushroom compost. So this is rich. This is very rich soil. The bed gives us really good drainage. Everything in here has had time to decompose, to age, to meld together. It rained yesterday, and look at my soil. So no mud. The other thing that's important is that this, check the soil temperature on this, and 4 inches down it's 65 degrees. And the last 3 days it has reached 65 degrees 4 inches down. Now, one of the things that's true for everybody, no matter what kind of tomato grower you are, is that it's really just a waste of your time to try to plant tomatoes before the ground is 60 degrees. It won't kill them if you put them out at 55. It will stress them. It'll just delay their growth. I've kept our little tomato plants in a place where their growth has been constant, and I've posted earlier videos to show how I've done that. But what I have right now, this particular tomato plant, is a 6-week-old baby. It was started in a hydroponic pod. It was then moved to a little bit larger pot, and then once again to an even larger pot. If I were not able to plant it soon, I would move it to an even larger pot. The purpose of that is to never allow the roots to be stressed. You want the roots to have time to grow, plenty of room to grow, to take up water and nutrients, and to grow uninterrupted. So you have here a fairly nice looking little plant. Now I do start my plants in the basement and then move them a week before planting out into a cold frame. So even though I have really good grow lights, I do struggle to make sure they don't get too leggy. So this one, you may have tomato plants that are bushier. This one is a little leggy but not bad. It's a healthy little perky plant. So I think that it's going to do well. So now the hole. If you'll see, my tomato plant is that tall. My hole is going to be that deep. Tomato plants like to be planted deep. That's not true of all plants. Some plants, like peppers, brassicas, cucumbers, carrots, brassicas, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, that sort of thing, they don't necessarily like to be transplanted deep. But tomatoes do. And the reason for that is because everywhere you trim a little leaf off, they will grow a root. The more roots you have, the healthier your plant is. The more nutrients the plant can take up, the more interrupted its growth would be. In order to grow good tomatoes, your tomato plant has to pull up moisture uninterrupted. That moisture contains its nutrients. If you have, when you're growing your tomatoes, if you have blossom end rot, let's say, people start looking for all kinds of answers to that. But the answer often is that the roots are compromised so that the plant can't pull up enough enough calcium to fully nurture itself. So the roots are very, very important. There you go. I've got a nice deep plant. This plant, this little pot was in water. I bottom water as they're growing. I'm going to trim off everything except the very top, so that what I have is the good strong leaves from the top sticking out. Now, this is my hole. You have seen videos where people now threw in a fish head, crushed eggs, sugar, cornmeal, Epsom salts, and whatever else they found in the kitchen. I want you to see what I'm throwing in this hole. This is water. It has a tiny, tiny 1/4 measure of fish and kelp oil. Feeding your tomatoes is not what you need to be doing. Feeding your soil is what you do. And you don't start it when you put your tomatoes in. You start it much earlier. Now, I will probably fertilize these in a couple weeks with a fish oil. I may possibly add some Espoma organic fertilizer for tomatoes. Spread that out 2 or 3 weeks. Not overdue. Now, let me tell you the reason that I say that. This soil, we built this soil. Mother Nature built this soil. What the tomato needs is in this soil. We had this soil tested, except for the fact that its pH is just a little bit high, not extremely high, but a little high. It needs nothing. We have good luck with tomatoes using this mixture in this soil. At the end of the season, when the tomatoes come up, we will have this soil tested again. And if there's something that needs added, we will do that. We may indeed plant a cover crop, which is a natural fertilizer of legumes, which will build the nitrogen in the soil. But this soil will feed this tomato. If you feel like you need to add something, but you need to know that some of those things that folks add don't help and can cause problems. So here is how I do the tomato, if I don't break it. I want you to see the root. Cameraman, can you see the roots? These roots were not growing out the bottom. They have been developed over a period of 6 weeks. I checked the roots as they were growing to make sure we had developing roots and that they were not bound up in any way. So the tomato will have a smooth transition. Now a little bit, there we go. So all that's going to stay up here is the very top. You pack as you go because you don't want gaps in the soil. You want the water to flow freely to the roots. You don't want the roots to hit air. You want them to hit soil. Within this soil, it is teeming with earthworms. If you dig down, you see the worms because it's been building for a period of months. Now, I understand that not everybody has that kind of time. When you first build a bed, you may not have months to wait to let it age naturally, to let it attract earthworms, to let decomposition take place, to let the microbes do their thing. Whatever you're working with, get a soil test so you know what you need to add. Because if what you need to add is lime and you add fertilizer instead, you get the opposite effect of what you want. Plus, you've paid for something you didn't need and you compromise your tomatoes. That's my dogs. They live here too. We're outside. There's a plane going over. I'll yell a little bit. So we're going to finish filling up this row. This row will hold 8 tomatoes. We have an area here where we'll plant about 56 tomatoes. Next year, we will plant beans in these beds. We will plant the tomatoes where we have the beans. We will rotate. The beans will fill this bed full of nitrogen. The tomatoes can use them. We won't clear everything out. Some of it we'll chop and drop it. We will put more wood mulch. We will add more nutrients through natural means. You may do it differently, and that's fine. This is how we do it. We've had pretty good results. This is a backyard. We picked 1,000 pounds of tomatoes last year. You can go to my blog, Debbie's Back Porch on WordPress, and see pictures and progress of the 1,000 pounds of tomatoes that we picked out of this backyard in a subdivision. So with this soil in this manner, we will be finished here when I put a tomato cage on it, because you want to put the tomato cage on it now. And we will then, after the tomato cages are on, we will mulch heavily and thickly with pine straw. The reason for pine straw or pine needles, according to where you are, you can also use some wood bark if you like, is that pine needles has what's called an allelopathic effect, meaning it has some materials in it that deter seed germination. So it will deter the weeds long enough to give our little plant time to get big and strong. Pine straw is not something you want to mulch a bed with seeds in. I made that mistake, put pine straw on my carrots and got no carrots. So I looked it up and found out that that's the reason not to do it. So this will have a tomato cage now before the roots develop, because we don't want to impede the roots in any way. We don't want to cut any of the roots. And pine straw. And then I will come back to you in 3 or 4 weeks and let you see the results of this method of planting with these tomatoes that were started inside and loved and nurtured every step of the way. Good luck with your tomatoes. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.